Okay. Okay, welcome everybody to this meeting of the Legal Committee. Logistically speaking, we absolutely have to finish today by 12:30. So I've adjusted some of the timings on the agenda to deal with that, and we'll come to that in due course. We have apologies today from Duncan Campbell, James Douglas, and Mary Pitt-Keithley. Do we have any declarations of interest and connections? Members? No? Buddy? Okay, thank you. Item 1.4 is decisions taken by correspondence. There have been none, which takes us to item 1.5, decision on taking business in private in accordance with section 20. Do members agree to taking agenda items 5 to 10 in private? Thank you. Just to clarify in terms of the order of the agenda, just for logistical reasons, when we come to it later in the agenda, I'm proposing to take item 9 after item 5, followed by item 7, and then we'll do items 6, 8, and 10. So we'll go 5, 9, 7, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so that takes us to minutes and actions from previous meeting. Item 2.1, members are asked to approve the minute from the meeting held on the 12th of August. Members approve? Thank you very much. Item 2.2 is the rolling action log and matters arising. There's one action proposed ongoing. Are members content? Yes? Okay, thank you. And decisions taken to the last meeting, there have been none. So that takes us to item 3, which is legal services claims handling. Report for discussion to be presented by Claire Pender. Claire.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good morning. So this is the standing quarterly report in relation to settlement of claims against Police Scotland. The report is set out in 3 parts. The first part deals with claims that have been settled. The second part deals with claims currently being dealt with. And the third part deals with other legal work that is being dealt with by Police Scotland Legal Services. Turning to the first part of the report, that's pages 2 to 5. This sets out the number of claims settled in the Q2 period, July to September 2025, and that is broken down by employer's liability, employment tribunal, public liability, and motor liability. In Q2, a total of 89 claims were settled. 6 employers' liability claims were settled at a total cost of £47,329. That gives an average settlement figure of £7,888 per case. 5 employment tribunal cases were settled in the quarter at a total cost of £80,625, with an average settlement figure of £16,125. 25 public liability claims were settled at a total cost of £65,058, with an average settlement figure of £2,602. And 53 motor liability cases were settled at a total cost of £224,239, with an average settlement figure of £4,231. Turning to the second part of the report, page 7 shows the number of employers' liability claims currently being dealt with. That figure is still fairly high in comparison to previous years, and that largely seems to be because of the multiple claims arising from the one incident in Edinburgh that members are aware of. But if any further details needed about that, I can go into that in the private session. That accounts for 25 of the 34 cases in the East that you see in that table. And the second highest figure of 25 in the West is in line with what we've seen in previous years. The dip, or the apparent dip in Q2, appears to have been a bit of an anomaly. Page 8 of the report provides a bit more detail as to the types of claim and division or department. Those figures again remain in line with previous reports, with injuries at work accounting for the majority of claims. Page 9 of the report shows the number of employment tribunal claims being dealt with broken down by the type of claim and division or department. Disability discrimination remains the highest proportion of claims. There is continuous ongoing work led by human resources around disability discrimination, and in particular in relation to reasonable adjustments. A new employee relations organisational learning group has now been set up with the purpose of identifying strategic and tactical organisational learning, identifying and seeking to implement effective and sustainable mechanisms for cascading and embedding learning and good practice across the organisation, monitoring progress and providing a biannual report on learning identified, the action taken, any benefits realised, and progress in mainstreaming good practice. The group has a wide range of membership, including human resources, the DCC Spears Professionalism and Assurance portfolio, legal services, health and safety, and risk assurance, amongst others. And that group should provide a forum to drive organisational learning from an employee relations perspective and, importantly, to monitor progress. Page 10 of the report shows the number of public liability claims broken down by area. The numbers in Q1 and Q2 were lower than we would usually expect to see. I'm not aware of any particular reason for that, but that seems to have again risen to 218, which is in line with last year's figures and more in line with what we would expect to see. For the first time, we have included within the report an additional table showing a breakdown of the types of public liability claims. The new version of the claims register is still very much a work in progress, so there is a high number of claims in the other category which haven't been categorised. But as more information is added to the register, we should be able to refine this data. But in the meantime, hopefully this is of some assistance to the committee in giving an indication of the types of public liability claims that we are facing. Appendix 1 is information the committee has previously seen. That shows the total cost of settlements over the previous 5 financial years. And Appendix 2 sets out some high-level information around other work carried out by the Legal Services Department and shows the number of new files opened in Q2 by category and type, and the number of legal inquiries fielded by the department. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions on this statistics report.
Thanks very much, Claire, for presenting the report. And it's good to see that we continue to make progress in terms of the presentation of the report. I think that's definitely helpful to the committee and to committee members. Can I open it up to colleagues for questions? Pauline.
Yeah, thanks very much, Claire. Good to see the kind of further work being done to refine this report. Just a few comments and then a question. The page 6, the kind of a chart that shows the data over time by each of the main claim categories, it would be helpful if that could be updated each quarter. I think it only goes up to the end of last year. So if we could see each of the recent quarters added to that, I think it then helps to kind of show at a glance the trends more clearly, and you'll be able to see on that, for example, that the trend of motor vehicle claims is continuing to be a bit lower than it had previously been, and the public liability claims are a bit higher than we would have seen in the past as well. And then it helps us kind of try and understand what actions were taken and whether they're actually making a difference as intended. And it was really positive to hear about the work of that organisational learning review group, and not just capturing the learning, but then processes in place to make sure that the learning is applied in practice and what difference that's making. It would be good to hear a bit more about that in due course, for maybe some examples of issues that have been raised in previous legal committees, and how that learning is being applied in practice, with some specifics there. In terms of the new table on page 11, again, very, very helpful. I was going to ask about what's all in the other category, so appreciate that's work in progress. My question is around the column around excessive force, 13 claims in that category. Are there any trends that we're noticing there, or any issues for us that we've uncovered?
There aren't any trends, as far as I'm aware, that we're identifying. You know, that's 13 out of a total of 218 claims, so it's not a particularly high number. And in terms of, you know, the spread of where you would see where the highest claims are, Edinburgh and Glasgow, as you would expect, are probably the highest areas, being the most kind of populated. So, as I say, not any particular trends that are being identified, but this new information and this new table will hopefully assist us as the claims register is populated with more information. This will hopefully assist us to identify any particular trends, and it's certainly one that we would keep an eye on. Obviously, the damage to property category at the moment is and unlawful arrest are kind of two of the highest. Again, that's probably in line with what we would expect in terms of public liability claims. So yes, as I say, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this table going forward to identify if there are any trends or themes, either in terms of the types of claims or the areas where we're seeing them.
Lynn, were you wanted to come in on that point?
Chair, I was, thank you, and Pauline, thank you. I think it's a really apt question, and as Claire says, it's something that we do and we continue to monitor. I have the benefit, privilege, call it what you will, of having both professional standards and officer safety or you know, national training in my portfolio. So it's really important that, as Claire says, that if there are any trends or anything of concern identified through that work, that it's flagged in both to training and potentially professional standards, so that we can look at it from a training perspective, going back to that organisational learning piece that you talked about, to make sure that we're really clear in the techniques, how those get administered, the tactical communications that officers have with people as well. And likewise, it should, on the rare occasion that something needs to be looked at, professional standards, we do that as well. I think we can improve, and we're working to improve that communication to make sure that we exchange that information timelessly. But it was just to give you that assurance that there is that transition from the legal side of the business into the kind of operational delivery side, so that we can put in place some prevention. Thank you.
Thank
Lynn.
you.
Pauline, are you content?
Yes, thanks.
Thanks, Pauline. Tom.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's just probably building on that conversation, and Lynn's helpful contribution partly answered what I was going to raise, but we're seeing the picture of the overall picture of claims here, and clearly vehicle claims are a significant part of the overall package. And then you look at where the employment liability claims around arrest and damage to property, you might not see it necessarily about individual cases, but the areas of focus. So my question is probably more about that organisational learning, particularly around driver training, where there's still some tensions around, you know, the availability, backlogs, etc. And the other thing is there any early reflections on the rollout of body-worn video in terms of the areas of risk? Are we showing signs of these claims going down in those areas where that rollout is further advanced?
Thank you, Tom. Lynn.
Again, thanks, Chair, and Tom, thank you for the question. So absolutely, the same applies, and I'll comment on the body-worn video if I may, but I'll ask Claire to come in around any trends that we might be seeing or any reduction off the back of that. I suspect it's perhaps a little early, but Claire will be able to give some insight into that. So very much the same principles apply around driver training. As you know, have got a really sort of firm grip on and chair an oversight group around driver training and how we take that forward. No concerns, I would hasten to add, in terms of operational delivery to divisions and local policing around the availability of courses. But again, we do monitor through legal and also what comes into PSD from the criminal and non-criminal side, any issues or trends that we might see in relation to driver training. Where, without getting into the specifics of cases, where we do see an issue with an officer and their standard of driving, then we have the ability to apply restrictions to that, understand, or to that officer, understand the reasons for them behaving as they did behind the wheel. And if that is a training issue, we continue to feed that into the training. In relation to the body-worn video, some really positive outcomes from the rollout of that programme. So PSD, and every complaint that might involve an allegation of assault or indeed use of excessive force, we are able to review that body-worn video. That assists us with our first line resolution of any complaints, and again, it also helps feed into that broader officer safety piece. I don't know if there's been any sort of reduction identified as yet. I suspect it's a little bit early, just given that we're rolling out body-worn video on an incremental basis. 2 divisions went online, 2 further divisions went online at the start of this month. But Claire, I'll defer to you, if I may, to see how that's translating into the legal claims.
I'll just respond to that quickly. I see that the DCC wants to come in. Yeah, we're not seeing an impact in terms of legal claims at the moment. I suspect, as you say, ACC, it's probably a bit early. I think in terms of motor liability claims, it's worth putting a bit of background context. So yes, our motor liability claims levels are high. They kind of always have been high. And that's, I think, partly indicative of the fact that, you know, police vehicles are out on the roads 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So I think there is always going to be that level of high motor liability claims, but hopefully in due course we will start to see an impact with things on like body-worn video. But I can see that the DCC wants to come in.
Thank you, Claire. Alan.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just a couple of comments on body-worn. So we've now rolled that out to over half, just slightly over half the country in terms of officers, and the next deployment really comes into the west part of the country. I would also probably argue that some of the more substantive divisions in the east, like Edinburgh, the rollout was just a couple of weeks ago. So I think we'll, to Tom's question, we'll just need a little bit more time on that, but certainly we are encouraged at the pace in which it's been rolled out, and the early indications are really positive. Converse to the complaint side, and it's something we're looking really closely at, is also around officer assaults. So the number of officers being assaulted remains incredibly high. It averages over the course of a year to be 20 assaults a day. And when you then translate that into the number of absences within the organisation, there's 3,000 days in the last year have been lost as a consequence of officers being assaulted in the workplace. So in the same vein that we would hope to see some of those benefits, we would hope that this too would be a deterrent as it relates to officer assault. So I just wanted to add that little bit of context. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That's helpful. Tom?
No, it's fine. Thank you. It's very good.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, colleagues. Colleagues, any further questions before we move on? I mean, I guess just to note Pauline's point about the welcoming the reference to the organisational review group, and to note that it would definitely be helpful to hear more about progress in relation to that in due course. Okay, everybody content to move on? Takes us to item 4, which is the legal committee work plan. Any comments on the rolling work plan? I guess just to note that we do have a development day for the committee in the progress of being scheduled, and we may want to review the work plan in the context of discussions at that point. But any points at this stage? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the public section of the meeting.